Have you ever wondered why they use a crash cart in a hospital when someone starts to code or when their heart stops beating? It's probably because they had evidence to back up the idea behind the crash cart. In order to prove a point in the healthcare system, you need to have evidence to back up your thinking. You can get evidence by performing your own experiment multiple times or by using experiments that have already been done by other people and implementing that into your own situation. Doing that is called evidence-based practice. And that's what I'm going to be talking to you about today. If you ever go into the intro to nursing class at Kirkwood, they'll have you write an evidence-based practice paper, which is what they're having me do right now. It's kind of stressful, but once you understand the idea, it makes a lot of sense. So how do you go about writing an evidence-based practice paper? Well, first you need to start with a question. How is this going to help this? The question is called a PICO question, and it's an acronym: P standing for population, I intervention, C comparison, O outcome, and T time. You take your question and you basically put the puzzle together, but you need to have that make sense for your certain situation. They actually have a different rubric for each question in system that you might be wanting to answer. So, in a situation where you are in a healthcare setting, you might not have an intervention. And by that, I mean the crash cart might not be useful to you. You could just be dealing with someone's feelings. So you're not going to have a intervention and a comparison. You're just going to ask, how can you help with someone? That's the difficult part of it. But that's not what we're going to get into today, because that's also really complicated. The next part after you get your question is getting your research. So how do you go about getting your research? Well, do you remember those databases that they used to show us in high school that you really had no idea what was going on? Well, those are the research articles that you actually use to answer your questions. When you understand your question, it makes it a lot easier to answer using the articles. You don't have to go through and read the whole 40-page PDF that they have. You just have to read the abstract and see if their objectives are the same as yours. So how do you know if that's going to pertain to your situation? That's where the practice guideline comes in. Practice guidelines are the 40-page papers that explain all the rules of your situation. So now that you have all of that information, a lot of information, what do you do with it? Where does it all go? Well, that's where putting your paper together comes in. Your paper is written out basically the same way that your articles are. So you're going to have your methods, you're going to have your statistics that you've gotten from your articles, you're going to have a conclusion where you're going to say, yes, this intervention is going to help our situation, or no, it's not. It might be difficult for you to figure out how to write it, but I think that's just the idea behind writing a paper. You have to do it time and time again to make it make sense. So I hope you learned a little bit about evidence-based practice today. You might have to use it sometime in your life, or you could just be going into the doctor's office and maybe you'll think, did they do that because they had evidence to back it up? So good luck if you are going into intro to nursing in the next couple of years. And there's a little bit of what you might be looking forward to.